Now that's Seattle Kraken hockey, baby.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Seattle hockey fans, welcome to a post-game live episode of Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we bring you your favorite team, the Seattle Kraken, every single day. My name is Erica Ayala. I am your host of Locked On Kraken, an accredited media member heading to Milano Cortina for the Winter Olympics. Super excited. We know Gruby's going to be there. We're hoping to see some more Kraken present or past players represented in Italy. But we're going to get into this game. This is a post-game show here. The Seattle Kraken just get a 3-0 victory over the Winnipeg Jets. It closes out a 6-game road trip. It keeps them at 500 on this road trip. It marks the first shutout for Joey Daccord of the season. And if you listen to the episode that we had earlier in the day where we previewed this game, or if you've been listening to the show, shout out to the everydayers, whether you're listening on audio or if you're with us on YouTube. But I had been saying that, I don't know, it didn't seem like an injury, but there was just something a little bit nagging, perhaps menacing. Something was a little off with Joey Daccord, with maybe Philip Grubauer as well. But again, early in the season, Joey started off hot, as did the Seattle Kraken team, and then started to see like, didn't quite have it the way we wanted, but man, did Joey have it tonight. He is the first star for the radio broadcast with Al and Everett, and for good reason. Joey Daccord not only had 32 saves on 32 shots faced, but he had an assist in this game. I believe he assisted on the second empty net goal. That's right. The Seattle Kraken had 2 empty net goals, and they get a big win here. This is a win that they needed. Striatic saying, we own Winnipeg, at least for now. Actually, it's interesting. I was reading Jeff Baker. He posted immediately after the win, as he usually does. But we might own them for tonight, but this is not a great history. 2-6-4 overall against the Jets. A 5-game winless streak against them, 0-3-2, dating back to March 2024. So this was a good win because we are able to, we're able to get a win and stop the skid, a 2-game losing streak, if you will, in regulation losses. We get points, we get outright points, we get a win. I love this from Michael earlier as we were getting ready to start. We really cooled their Jets. Okay, all right. I see what you did there. This was a good game also because, as we heard the radio broadcast say, I wasn't tuned into what the TV broadcast was saying, but I can't imagine that they said anything much different. But what we heard Al and Everett talk about is that this was a defensive-minded win. And we heard, and I played this on our earlier episode of Locked On Kraken, the Seattle Kraken, they didn't play well in Philadelphia. They didn't play well in Washington, and Lane Lambert made that evidently clear. He was not going to take this team off the hook. Oh, you got injuries? Who doesn't? He really will keep this team, he'll keep them honest, and I like that. We heard from Adam Larson on the radio broadcast. Here's what he had to say. He said the team did the little things today. He also talked about Lane Lambert, was asked about Lane Lambert, and he said that he's doing a, quote, tremendous job. And he said he teaches us things. And I thought that was such an interesting quote because everydayers, you know that since I was in Seattle for preseason, I had been trying to figure out and analyze and be able to talk through what Lane Lambert's process, kind of approach, the overall philosophy was going to be. And he wants this to be a hardworking, defensive-minded team. But as far as process, he will stop practices. The very first practice that we were able to attend as media, he stopped drills to make sure that the team was doing things the way he wanted. And that immediately sets the tone. It immediately sets the tone. And these are the kinds of wins that the Kraken can get when they buy into that completely. I'm going to go to Striatic here, who has a question saying, my question is, was the game boring enough for Lane Lambert? There was a combined 0.4 expected goals in that first period. And I imagine Lane in the intermission yelling, can we be even more boring? Listen, well, in the first period, things definitely started to heat up. Things got a little spicy at the end, and it was actually Winnipeg that had some opportunities late in that first period. And if we look at the shot breakdown, Winnipeg did have more shots on goal in the first period. They were at 11 shots on goal comparative to Seattle's 9. And Joey started getting tested early in that game, or I should say, early in the game, but late in the first period. In the second period, the Seattle Kraken outshot Winnipeg 8-0. The Jets, though, did get to 13 shots in the third frame, only 8 for the Kraken. Listen, boring hockey to me, I mean, I don't know. I think that boring, he probably just means simple. It doesn't have to be super flashy. We heard Al in particular on the radio broadcast talking about that there was an emphasis early on by the Kraken to take quick shots, not to kind of play with their food, as I sometimes say, but he saw that there was a direct game. And I talked about shot volume. It's something actually that Lane Lambert talked about in the pregame and that we talked about on the episode or the earlier episode for today, Thursday. So, boring. I don't know if it was boring. Again, I was listening and Alan Everett or anything but boring. But I think that what we like is that it was a game that the Seattle Kraken felt that, they could manage. It was something that was manageable within what is Kraken hockey. Baby. You can't say Kraken hockey and not just add the baby at the end, right? But I think that in this game, the Seattle Kraken got back to how they want to play, what their true identity, at least early in the season, is going to be. Some of the things that we absolutely love to see in this game is Jaden Schwartz getting his third and fourth goal of the season. Shane Wright and Adam Larson get the assists on his goal in the second period, unassisted in the third period, and Eberle gets the second empty net goal of the third period. Jaden Schwartz gets the primary assist, and Joey Daccord gets the secondary assist. We heard also a lot about blocked shots. The blocked shots in this game were actually even, 14 apiece, but it was something that Al and Everett asked Adam Larson about post-game. And it's something that we heard Matty Beniers talk about with regard and with respect to Berkeley Catton in the pregame. So I know that some people have an issue with block shots as a metric. And I think if you're looking for it as a metric for how good a goaltender is, maybe, or how good defensive assignments, I think there's a lack of context sometimes when we talk about blocked shots. And so block shots versus, how much then time are you giving your opponent in the offensive zone? And there's a lot of different ways. But what I'm hearing from the Seattle Kraken organization and through the broadcast is that they are leaning into the fact that basically guys are selling their bodies out. They are willing to do what it takes to play good, hard defense. And that's important. I love it. I love it. Striatic saying, obviously more work to do on the boringness front. Yeah, be more boring. Be more boring, right? I don't know. Can this team be more boring? Yeah, probably. But I think for me, if defense is boring, give me more of it. Listen, I know that JD over at Locked On Sharks, they don't believe, and JD doesn't believe in defense. Defense allegedly is for nerds. Is that the same as being boring? Probably. I don't know. I'm not caught up on the slang. No. But I think a lot of people do find defense boring. You know what's not boring? Winning games. You know what's not boring is winning games against a team that's on a 5-game winning streak. You know what's not boring is being able to defeat a team even when you, in your most recent 2 games, haven't played your best, look kind of tired and fatigued. That's not boring. You know what's not boring to me? Joey Daccord making a comeback. Again, I'm not sure. Maybe it was a little bug. Was it something mentally? I don't know, but Joey looked a little out of sorts in his last 2 starts, got pulled, right? So, or 2 games ago, I think it was. But this is a team that you're seeing the resilience early in this season. And I kind of alluded to this in the episode earlier today. There are times where you're pointing fingers and talking about blame, and this is why things aren't going well. In a manner of speaking, it's excuses, or you're identifying everything that's wrong. The hard work that this team does, the dedication to discipline, the boring, air quotes for those listening on audio, thank you to our audio listeners, the boring hockey, to me, it's not in service to just playing or not only in service to just wanting to keep it simple, play a simple game, play again blue collar lunch pail type of game. It's to simplify the game and to simplify what is being asked of the players. What do we do for this Lane Lambert era of the Seattle Kraken? We play defense. What do we do under the Lambert era? We battle for pucks. What do we do under the Lane Lambert era? We are resilient. We bounce back. And to me, whether you want to call it boring or not, I mean, the Golden State Warriors have been called a boring team. But what's not boring is seeing those banners be lifted into the rafters and to see teams be able, or players to be able to get their bling bling championship rings. That's not boring at all. Stanley Cup parades, I'm sure, are not boring. Haven't ever been to one myself, but I would imagine that a championship parade is anything but boring. And these are the things that it takes if you want that as a true part of your future. And so, yeah, I hear you. I love my 3 Fs. Striatic saying, in all seriousness, I do want fast, fun, and forechecking. But if boring wins, I'm cool with that on top. And I said this earlier today. I said that you have to have your foundational things. And I think that's what maybe people are classifying again as boring hockey. But you have to have that foundation. I'll say it this way. If you're familiar with a coach, goes by the name John Wooden. Yeah, John Wooden, UCLA legend, basketball coach, an icon, Hall of Famer. John Wooden used to, at UCLA, one of the first things he would do, now he's coached Olympians multiple times over, obviously NCAA champions under the UCLA Bruins program. Every single year, one of the first things that John Wooden would do with his team is teach them how to put their socks on. I'm not sure it gets any more boring than that. Like every time I hear that story in my mind, this is the 60s, 70s, right? John Wooden, I think, is of that era. These were definitely white tube socks, right? Like the most boring dad socks with probably their Converse high tops, right? Absolutely no arch or ankle support whatsoever. That is probably one of the boringest things that I've ever heard in sports. You know what is also true is that up until recently, when Gino Auriemma beat his record, John Wooden held the record for most NCAA basketball championships for decades. For decades. By being what? By being boring. By being consistent, by making his baseline foundational pieces of his program, but not just the program, of every single roster, of every single team. He never took for granted, quite literally, that his team knew how to put their socks on the right way. I mean, I don't know that there's a more boring, air quotes for my audio folks. I don't know that there's a more boring sports story than John Wooden teaching his team to how to put on their socks and their shoes. But it worked. Okay, I'm not even kidding you. I'm going to ask Lane Lambert what he thinks about John Wooden. I'll be in Seattle in about a week and a half. And now I just need to know. I love being able to pick the brains of great leaders, people who motivate other people. I love to see what their approach is, what they read, who they model their philosophies off of, who was someone who maybe really ticked them off and that they are like, I will never be like this. I would love to know. I'm just gonna be like, Lane, what do you know about John Wooden? And I want to see what he says. I just would be curious because again, if boring is the playbook, John Wooden might be the blueprint. I'm just saying. Were the Caps boring the other night? Who cares? That's the handle name, just in fairness. I know my audio listeners, you're not looking at the comments. Were the Caps boring the other night? They weren't. Listen, there's more than one way to win a hockey game. There's more than one way to win a hockey game. There's a fast-paced, exciting way of playing. And when some people are going to want that philosophy. You can tell I love history. So, I mean, the Edmonton Oilers, when Grant Fuhr was goaltending, those were not boring games. Grant Fuhr did a lot of work because those Oilers teams, they will tell you, they'll be the first to tell you, they didn't play defense. It was all straight downhill, north all the way, only one direction. Maybe the guys couldn't even skate backwards, as far as I know. Who's to say? Because they weren't looking. They weren't looking back. There's multiple ways to win, but when you are a hardworking, blue collar, lunch pail style team, because you lack depth, you have to get the guys to buy into boring. Because if they don't play fundamental hockey, the Seattle Kraken will not win games. And you only need to look to the past 2 games to see that. Their goalie played excellent defense. Are you talking about which goal? Well, the Caps got great goaltending. Who else had some pretty good goal? I mean, I think the Washington Capitals game for sure was the best goaltending that we saw. I saw better passing, getting the puck off the boards into our own player. Yes. I didn't literally see it because I have been listening to the audio or the radio broadcasts. But what you're saying, who cares, is exactly what Al and Everett talked about. There was intentionality in the movements. And that is huge. There have been times throughout the history of the Seattle Kraken that you would watch them and it's like, I know that you're moving and I'm pretty sure you know what you're supposed to do. And yet what I'm seeing and how this is transpiring, I'm just trying to understand how you came to the conclusion that that was the best way to execute. Execution flawed, attention to detail flawed, at times to my deep disappointment. This has been a team that didn't hustle to pucks. They didn't win 50-50 battles or even really try to get into 50-50 battles. They didn't have good body positioning. You meant Michael saying, I meant our goalie. Oh, like the Seattle Kraken goalie? I don't know. Sometimes the comments, they come up with a delay. So if I say the wrong thing in reference to your comment, please do just type and correct me. But yes, the Seattle Kraken got very good goaltending. But I've talked about Joey a little bit. I'll get back to him. But this is a Seattle Kraken team. Again, they have to play a disciplined game. And what I said earlier today on the earlier episode is Lane Lambert is John Wooden in that he is willing to and will absolutely remind his team how to, what is the word I'm trying to think of? He will basically he's going to make sure they put their socks and shoes on the right way. And you don't move on until you put your socks and shoes on the right way. That's the vibe I'm getting from Lane Lambert. And so all of this other stuff will come, but the fact that he is drilling fundamentals early in the season, it reminds me of you ever seen the Angels in the Outfield movie, that the 1990 version with what is his name? Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who's now like a grown man, but at the time he was a child. And he the California Angels, because I think they were the California Angels at that time. Well, anyway, the point is the Angels baseball team. George Knox, aka Danny Glover, he's barking at them. They lost another game, and he's like, you're going to show up at this time. We're going back to fundamentals. And one of the veterans like, fundamentals in the middle of the season? And Danny Glover was basically in much more colorful language like, yeah, because you don't have fundamentals. So we're going to go back to the fundamentals. Lane Lambert's not going back to fundamentals. He's not, because he's doing it now. So that when this team gets to 10 games, which is coming up, 15, 35, you know what I'm saying? Once we get deep into the season, the fundamentals are second nature. But if you don't harp on that now, if you allow the small things to, the team to get away with the small things, how are you ever going to get it back when you need it? That's what I'm saying. Okay, Striatic chiming in here. Joey is good for a miracle per game, but we need to make sure he only needs one miracle. Listen, Striatic, I know you know as well as anyone else. You've been here. You're one of our A1 day ones, right? Yes to this comment. This is, and that's why I've been keeping a keen eye on our goaltenders. I talked about this earlier today on our episode earlier today. I was like, I'm keeping eyes. I'm pointing my fingers at the camera, audio folks. I'm keeping eyes on our goaltending, because what Striatic says right here is absolutely accurate. If our goaltenders can't make a miracle or more save per game, historically, the Kraken are in deep crap. They're in deep trouble. Historically. We're rolling with 3 goaltenders, so hopefully fatigue won't be an issue. But we have to be better. We absolutely have to be better. And that's why there was disappointment in how the team played the last 2 games, because they lapsed on their defensive focus. And so a part of the way that you make sure your goaltender, pointing down to this comment from Striatic, the way that you make sure your goaltender doesn't have to make those miracle saves is by playing good defense, is by winning puck battles, is by getting the puck out of the defensive end, is by communicating. That's how you do that. Who Cares says, I loved watching Marchman have a little fun. That was really funny. I'm going to read the whole comment, but it was hilarious. I loved watching Marchman have a fun little throwing a fake punch. Have some fun, play hard, know your role. Hey, let's go. I'm interrupting. I'll read the rest of the comment. Know your role. Yes. Who Cares? Yes. Again, Who Cares is the handle name, just for those who are not watching with me on YouTube. Yes, exactly. Know your freaking role. I added the freaking. Call Beacon. No, that's a commercial that we hear sometimes on the radio. I guess on TV too. Anyway, know your role. There's been more net front presence on both ends. Yes, I'm not going to do the heat maps. I'm still going to do a little bit of a more condensed, tight recap tomorrow for Friday. But yes, net front presence. We also, in the losses, in our outright regulation losses, that was something that Lane Lambert said they got away from: net front presence. You got to do the things that work. You have to go back to basics, aka fundamentals. One last comment. I love all of your comments. Before you go, before you go, riding high on PWHL selling more jerseys than PWHL Vancouver, and the Kraken shutting out the Jets. Listen, Striatic, I said this on Tuesday, and that was only 2 days into the week. It's been a great week for Seattle hockey. PWHL Seattle, like you said, selling more jerseys than PWHL Vancouver, selling them out. We had Ava Wood on site covering that for us. Then we had Joe Dabney, not a great game against the Capitals, but she made some great inroads with our broadcast teams. Had a great time. It is a great time. This is a great win. The boys are coming back home. And next week, early next week, we'll have a guest. I will not be in Seattle for the game on Saturday, but a guest and a fellow woman in sports is set to join us early next week to talk about an Edmonton, a game against Edmonton. Now, Edmonton, let me look at the standings again. I mean, obviously, games are starting to go final. But, the Seattle Kraken, I believe Everett said, and I'll double check right now, the Seattle Kraken with this win, they get back, yes, into second place in the division. We are the second team to 10 points in the division. Didn't have that on my bingo card. The Seattle Kraken with 10 points on the season, Vegas with 12 points on the season, Anaheim in third place with 9, and then Vancouver with 8. In fifth place, the Oilers, 7. They are 3-3-1 on the season. What version of Edmonton are we going to see when we come back to Climate Pledge Arena? I also, Striatic, am going to get out of here soon. I want to close, though, with just to go back to the defensive point. Takeaways always throws me off. It's not something that I say often because I'm a basketball girly, but the Seattle Kraken effectively had 6 takeaways, or in basketball, I would say turnovers, right? We forced turnovers from the other team. Whoa, I'm about to throw my pen everywhere. 6 takeaways. 2 of those were from Jaden Schwartz. So 2 of the 6, Jaden Schwartz doing what he needs to do. Net front presence, Jaden Schwartz. Scoring goals, Jaden Schwartz. This man, say what you want. Oh, he's on the wrong side of 30. We need younger players. He's not captain material, blah, 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 blah. If you look at it, every single season, while the Seattle Kraken are figuring out if they want to be a real contender or, I don't know, something else, Jaden Schwartz has multiple times in a season where he puts this team on his back by doing the exact things that Lane Lambert is rewarding this season. And if we could get even like, I don't know, everyone to play like a third of what we get from Jaden every night, we would be an exponentially better team. And I think that's the plan. Michael saying we need the Sonics back. Hey, listen, I mean, I know it seems like it's not if, it's just a matter of when. Things have stalled out. The NBA, they got a lot of things on their whiteboard that they've got to fix. I mean, this whole, there's a lot going on. I'm not getting into it. This is not an NBA podcast, but yeah, the Sonics coming back would be awesome, but we've talked about it. If the Sonics come back and the Kraken aren't winning, do we kind of get lost in the sauce here? Got a lot of great teams. The Mariners nearly made it to their first World Series. The Seattle Storm looking for a new head coach, but have been in the playoffs. Couldn't get through the first round, but have been in the playoffs the last handful of seasons. They have Dominique Malunga, the 19-year-old phenom. Seattle Reign are in the playoffs again. You got to keep up. And if the Seattle Kraken can play the way they played tonight, they just might do it. All right, that's our bonus episode. Thank you so much for joining. We're going to do more of these post games. Joe and I are working out a schedule. We have a big event next week. We'll be in New York City for the Team USA Summit. And although the men's ice hockey representation will be pretty thin because we're in NHL season, as you know, I do keep up with PWHL Seattle on the Locked On Kraken show, and I'm also the host of the Women's Hockey Report, which is a Saturday episode that airs on the Locked On NHL channel. And let's just say, for the purposes of the Locked On Kraken show, Hillary Knight will be there at the Team USA Summit. We know that she's announced this will be her last Olympics no matter what. So we will have that coverage, Joe and I, boots on the ground in New York City for the Team USA Summit as we count down to 100 days until Milano Cortina. That's right. The next Olympics, and NHL players are coming back. We've got a lot to talk about. Yes, Mariners' loss was disappointing, but you got to hold on to hope. You got to hold on to hope. And also a reminder to be kind to yourselves and open that kindness up to others. That will do it for our post-game episode. Hold fast, stay true, and loud and proud, always say, let's go Kraken. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Striatic. Thank you, Who Cares, for coming on and commenting on this live stream. I'll catch you on the next episode. Peace out and good night, everybody.